Hello and welcome to SFI TV and Monaco as we bring you to the very heart of the Sahara Force India Formula One team. Coming up on the show, we look back at Spain and Monaco. Paul di Resta talks to us about his career in motorsport and living in the Principality. And we get an invite to the most exclusive and glamorous party on the F1 calendar as team principal Vijay Mallya invites us aboard the Indian Empress. So to start the show, we're here in the beautiful south of France to talk to the man who lives here in Monaco and is a Sahara Force India Formula One driver, Paul di Resta. So Paul, thank you for joining us, or should it be us joining you? Here we are in your back garden, really. This is now home and it's a little bit different to Scotland, but how are you finding it?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy life in the sun. I think it's a good thing. I've got a nice life, you know, away from Formula One, and Monaco's a very quiet place to live. It's very good conditions for me to equally train, get myself prepared mentally and physically ahead of Grand Prix and when I should perform. And really there's a small community of drivers down here that you can equally stay involved with, be very close to, and if you want, live a very quiet life.
Just imagine some sort of village fete going on maybe once a year where all the drivers congregate together and make pies and cakes. Is it like that? Do you kind of phone each other and get together and go out and do stuff?
No, it's certainly, I stay in close contact with a few drivers. You know, not all of them. I think we all have different interests, but certainly Jensen's very close. David Coulthard. There's a lot of guys around, especially from the UK, that we have the same interests and same lives, and it's nice to have them equally to talk about away from the track and enjoy ourselves. But there's also the professional part where there's a competition going on about driving.
What is it that brings you guys out here? I mean, obviously it's fantastic weather. You said about the training. Are those the key things? No,
I think the big thing is a life change, and you know, you have to be a bit more selfish about yourself and concentrate on your life, and to stay focused. This is a great hub to be, and it is Central Europe, and primarily during the summer, it's an easy place to travel from and live a good life. And certainly just be in contact with the rest of the world, because there is so many of us here. I think you know, it's a special environment, and for one Grand Prix of the year you get to stay in your own bed, which is always a great thing.
Do you miss home at all?
I always miss home. I was very much a close family man, and I still am. I still do miss it. But you know, Scotland, I had to relocate, and living in Scotland definitely wasn't going to work. In Monaco, you know, a lot of drivers had convinced me this was the place to come and live, and I've certainly got no regrets coming here. And the lifestyle has been very good that I can do, and it's not far away from my family to travel and join me and spend time down here.
So Paul, let's take you back to the early days. What's your first memory of motorsport and how did it all begin for you?
Well, I grew up in a motorsport-based family. My dad's always had been involved in racing go-karts, and they were always around the garage. And when I was younger, as long as it had an engine and smelt of petrol, I was interested, and that's what drove me. And it wasn't really a case of, you know, did you want to race? It was, when could I start? And you know, I took part in, you know, motorbikes, go-karts, various different things. You know, football just wasn't enough to keep my attention span going.
And obviously the move into DTM was one that isn't a standard move. What drove you to that? What was the decision?
We always struggled for budgets coming through the ranks, and at the end of my Formula Renault I won the BRDC McLaren Autosport Young Driver of the Year award. That was probably the biggest thing I won to that date, and Mercedes asked me to be part of their junior development programme, of which they helped us a tremendous amount of budget to do Formula 3, and they became very committed to that. I had to do a test. It all went very well, and you know, I became part of their team. We won the Euro Series, the Formula 3 Euro Series the year after, and the Ultimate Masters, and always a natural progression from that for their commitment to help me in Formula 3 was I become a DTM driver, and it naturally progressed into 4 great years of my life representing a great manufacturer like Mercedes-Benz, and we won the championship, and I proceeded to go on to Formula 1, which was always my dreams, and I always put 100% focus into the job I was doing with them, but they always knew my ambitions were a bit bigger, and they didn't let me give up on my dream and gave me a tremendous opportunity that I'm very thankful of, and still very close to that family at the moment.
How hard was it to choose to leave? And I mean, the call of Formula One's pretty strong for anybody.
It's very hard to leave. I had 6 years there, so a lot of friends and family almost, and it's a big working environment, and it's something I don't regret. You see drivers that retire from Formula One go back to DTM. I've done the opposite, and that shows you how competitive the championship is and what it's prepared me and how to deal with the media, building a new car, working with 300 people, developing a car and really working under pressure. And that's why I think when I came into Formula One, I got to grips relatively fast. We combined both projects in 2010, which was a thing that nobody else had done. And naturally, I've progressed on to become a Formula One driver, which is great because Force India gave me a big opportunity, and I'm very thankful of that. The relationship is strong, and we're continuing to progress as a team at the moment.
Got to let me in, or let us in, I should say, on the moment that you found out that this was your destiny. I mean, can you remember a phone call? What was it, the moment that you realised, okay, I'm going to be a Formula One driver?
Yeah, I mean, it was the end of 2010. It was a very nice Christmas present, you want to call it, into the winter. It was unknown, but I had trust in what Force India were saying, and they always delivered what they said they were going to do. And equally up to this time, becoming Sahara Force India, they've done that now, and I'm very thankful that's progressed. And I think we can go further as a team. I'd like to be part of that. We're getting better each year, although we're under extreme pressure to try and replicate what we achieved last year. But the challenge is big. But I think the way the team is and how motivated they are, we can achieve massive things for this team.
So your hopes and aspirations for this year, I mean, last year was an amazing year. You'd hope that things can improve this year?
We as a team set ambitions of maintaining 6th place as a constructor, with the best of that trying to be 5th. But to achieve that, you have to take on a team like Lotus, who weren't so long ago double world champions, and they have a great resource, a great factory, and a great bunch of people, and Force India's trying to overturn that. But you can't say it will never be done. It's a great challenge, and one that everybody in Formula One's up for at the moment.
I mean, you talk about the team at Sahara Force India. It is relatively small, and there's you, Nico and Jules this year as well. How do you three of you get on, and especially you and Nico?
I think the relationship's strong. Me and Nico are obviously the same age, and naturally probably got the same interest and came up the driving schools the same way. But we're here to do one thing, and that's represent Sahara Force India and work as a team. And I believe we're achieving that at the moment. The team is a bit behind, and we're trying to push forward and work together, develop, score lots of points together. But equally there's a competitive nature in there, and the two of us are working that quite well at the moment.
It's an interesting balance, isn't it? We've seen throughout the years of Formula One trying to get that competitive but kind of friendly banter between two people who are trying to compete against each other. It's tough.
It is tough, and it's naturally it gets a bit heated sometimes, but I think the two of us are wise enough. We've been in this game a long time that there's more things in life than that, and as a constructor that's the more important part for the team, whereas we see it as a driver. So it's a fine balance, but one that I think is managed very well, and equally from Sahara Force India's side.
Talking about you as a person, stepping away from Formula One a little bit, training, days off, how do you spend them? What do you like to do?
Well, you don't get days off. That's one thing for sure. Since coming out to Monaco, that's been a great thing. I've really taken upon cycling. There's a lot of cycling community down here, a lot of professionals. I've got very friendly with them, and it's great to get out on your bike, go away into Italy and get some coffee, and just really come back. It becomes almost a social event, but one that has a use for it. And equally, every morning I get up, go away for 3-4 hours, come back, and the day's to myself, and I can focus on trying to get myself and organise my timetables to the best of my ability based upon the experience I have, and that's what I think down here, which I wouldn't be able to achieve back in Scotland.
We know the London Olympics are coming up. They're not terribly far away, and I was going to ask you, out of all the sports there, if you could pick one, what would you prefer to compete in? If you couldn't be doing motor racing and you had one sport, what would it be?
I think at the moment I probably would choose cycling, because I really have become very addicted to it and enjoy it. And it's something that I've not been able to do other than my racing through my career, to find a sport that I love doing almost as much as my racing. There's nothing better than when you get a group together, you can go away, you can have lunch. Equally, it can be a small group, you can do it on your own, and it really is a great experience. But the London Olympics is obviously a massive thing, and everybody, all eyes will be on. It's great that we've got the August break when it's on, because you can follow it with close detail. I'll be fully supporting obviously a fellow Scot, Chris Hoy, who had a tremendous success back at the last Olympics, and I think everybody's up for a challenge this year, and hopefully Britain can do the rest of the world proud.
So you'll be watching it from here, you won't be venturing back to probably cold and rainy Britain to watch any of it?
No, I think the TV tells a bigger story. It's our free time ahead of what we have, the last part of the season, which is a lot of flyaways. But it's probably the most important time for me to rebuild my fitness level that I had in the winter, that base foundation, to get that back on track and really just enjoy the sun and relax a bit with some family.
Good stuff. Well, enjoy Monaco, enjoy the sunshine. I know you will, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
When it comes to Monaco, what's the first thing you think about? Okay, so it's probably the Formula One, and then maybe the glamour of it all. But third in that list is bound to be parties, and what a party we find ourselves at. We have the most exclusive invite in the Formula One paddock. We're here on Team Principal Vijay Mallya's yacht to experience life on the Indian Empress.
These are the things you get to enjoy. We're here at the Indian Empress, one of the super yachts that Vijay Mallya owns, our team owner, and he puts on a great party on a Thursday night because we have a day of rest tomorrow. It just really brings the whole atmosphere of this weekend.
I mean, it's a very prestigious Grand Prix, maybe the glamorous and most important one of the year. I think it's pretty obvious, everybody can see that. I think a lot of eyes are watching out for Monaco this weekend, and it's a fantastic atmosphere, fantastic circuit, and a great challenge for a driver to compete here in the race.
This is the fun part, this is a bit that we get to enjoy, soak up the atmosphere as a driver. And we are here to represent Sahara Force India. We've got a lot of sponsors, a lot of guests to entertain, and what a great way to do it at a Grand Prix weekend, equally at a function like this on such a special yacht.
So after 6 races in the 2012 F1 Championship, the Sahara Force India F1 team are lying 8th in the standings on 28 points, whilst in the drivers' standings, Paul is in 11th place with 21 points and Nico is in 15th place on 7 points. Here is Chief Operating Officer Otmar Zafnauer to look back at the last 2 races in Spain and Monaco from a team point of view.
Well, this year's Spanish Grand Prix for the Sahara Force India team had our first major performance upgrade, as traditionally is done and as most other teams do. We were able to make a significant performance step with our upgrade relative to our competitors, which allowed us to put in good qualifying performances just outside of the top 10. Another tenth of a second or so and we would have been in the top 10. But that didn't happen. Paul started in 13th place and Nico in 14th. And they both raced very well. Nico ended up in 10th, fighting off Mark Webber on pure pace, the winner of the last Grand Prix, and the Grand Prix just before, Nico was able to hold him back for the last point. Very good race for Nico, and Paul was not far behind him. So in Monaco, we continue to optimize our latest developments. With that continuation means that we're able to close in even further on our competitors Again, we just missed out on Q3. We were P11 this time instead of P13, so much closer. We had a very good race, a bit fortunate that Michael had a problem, which meant we were able to move up one position each. We were able to overtake Verne in the closing stages of the race because his tire degradation was very high, trying to run 60-some laps on one set of tires. And we finished up the race in 7th and 8th place, Paul being 7th and Nico being 8th. I think Nico was held up in the first stint by a slow Kimi Räikkönen, which allowed Paul, who was running a bit longer on his tires, to do some quick laps and overtake those who pitted in front of him. 10 points scored in Monaco. We're now 13 points adrift from our midfield competition, who is Sauber, and 16 points adrift from Williams. Another few races like Monaco, and hopefully we will catch them and overtake them just like we planned.
So next up, it's the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. Then we head to Valencia for the European Grand Prix. So here's Nico and Paul to talk us through what to expect on track.
Well, the Canadian Grand Prix is one of my favorites, to be honest. I really enjoy driving there, you know, and just being in Montreal is a great city. The circuit itself, you know, is a good mix between like a permanent race circuit and like a street circuit. There's lots of corners where the walls are very close at the exit, so you know it's quite challenging to get everything right there. Very easy to make a mistake and end up in the wall, such as, you know, the Wall of Champions at the end of the lap with the last chicane. So you know, it's a very challenging circuit. Historically, there's always been lots of graining, you know, which makes it even more difficult to keep the car on the track and perform well. But yeah, it's good fun, and also who knows Montreal knows, you know, there's a great city, a very nice atmosphere during the Grand Prix weekends there. Good to have a good steak somewhere or sushi. You know, food is pretty much brilliant anywhere in town. So yeah, let's go there. Well, Montreal is not low downforce, not Monza low downforce spec, but it is you know, quite high speed, and teams normally take some downforce of the car. So as a driver, you have to get used to that as well. You know, driving the car with less downforce, it just feels a bit looser. And at the same time, you still need to use the curbs, need to go close to the wall. So it is quite a challenge and a nice thrill to drive around Montreal. I think Montreal is one of those cities which really gears up for the Formula One weekend. You know, everybody's talking about it. You see lots of advert, lots of support we get there as well. A lot of Formula One fans in the city during the weekend. So it's a very unique and special atmosphere, as I've experienced it in 2010 and 11. So yeah, I really look forward to going there. I think overtaking is generally possible. I think there was a double DRS zone last year. So, you know, on the back straight and then on the main straight, so it gives you plenty of you know, chances for overtaking, and also deck is quite high in Montreal, so that mixes it all up quite a bit. And that's why overtaking shouldn't be a problem there.
Valencia is obviously a very new circuit to the Formula One calendar. It's a combination of street circuit, come normal circuit. It's a bit of a mixed match. Marina, bridges, you name it, it's got it, and it's got a lot of corners to go with it. I think the most on the Formula One calendar. The track itself is very smooth. Setup is quite tricky to get on top of, because I think if you're just slightly out, obviously over 25 corners, it makes a bit of a difference in terms of lap time. But the track itself has some good braking zones, long straights. I think it obviously throws some different things into it, and it's really about, you know, keeping the concentration levels high to make sure you can keep the focus for that lap, because it does drag on quite a lot. Valencia city has a lot of nice architecture, a lot of nice restaurants. It's got a very nice city life to it. Obviously being Spanish, everything starts very late in it, but the Grand Prix track is in the port right next to the beach. Fortunately, we get to stay on the beach. It's always nice to go a jog along there, see the scenery, enjoy all the ladies. But no, it's generally, it's got a great atmosphere. A lot of British fans come to support, obviously being close, the weather providing, and generally through when we go to Valencia, there's always a huge festival on the Wednesday, which is always nice to feel part of. It's a very challenging track, a lot of slow speed chicanes. It has a high speed section at the end of the lap, which is quite fast, quite tricky, especially now they've introduced DRS. It makes the cars quite nervous through that section, but it is a huge challenge. Rear tyres is the big challenge there, making sure you can maintain them certainly through a race distance. Degradation can be quite high.
So that's it for today's show, but remember, it's your programme, so anything you want to know or want us to cover, get in touch. And you can keep up to speed with the Sahara Force India Formula One team on Facebook, on Twitter and online. So from all of us here at SFI TV, bye for now.